welcome to the deep dive.
Yep.
You handed us just a phenomenal stack of sources this week.
It's a great collection.
It really is. It's not just, a bunch of celebrity interviews and research papers. It feels more like a full toolkit. We've got material on resilience, what wealth really means, the complexities of relationships, and how to define your self-worth in what is a very noisy world.
Right.
So our mission today is to take all these powerful personal stories and insights and, well, synthesize them into a practical roadmap, something for intentional growth and reflection.
And if we're going to frame this whole deep dive, I think it comes down to one central idea. We're looking past the polished outcomes.
The album release, the championship trophy.
Exactly, the successful IPO. We're asking how successful people actually navigate the messy middle of growth. Because the sources, they reveal the hidden battle isn't really about skill.
No.
It's authenticity. And maybe most importantly, it's the ability to ruthlessly protect your internal energy, your intellectual space.
From the constant drain of external expectations.
Yeah.
So the whole compilation sets that tone. It's about looking back at challenges, not as failures, but as the moments that were actively preparing you for what's next. So we're here to synthesize those lessons into functional strategies for how to grow and reset when things get, well, when they get difficult. Okay, let's start where growth often feels the most vulnerable.
Relationships.
Authentic connection, yeah. We have this fascinating origin story of Selena Gomez and Benny Blanco. And what's interesting is that their relationship isn't some perfect, rom-com meet cute.
Not at all.
They first met when she was just 16. He was, 20 or 21? And those initial interactions were almost professional and very guarded.
In that history, it actually created a genuine barrier. Benny initially thought she actively disliked him.
Right.
But he later understood it was just her intense, almost institutionalized caution. I mean, when you're a pop star, people are constantly projecting things onto you.
So she had these walls up.
Instinctively, just to survive. The breakthrough, he said, came years later. He was in the studio and just had this moment where he realized she was this incredibly complicated person.
So deep, he said. Not the one-dimensional person the world thinks they see.
And the way she actually started flirting, that's the key takeaway for authenticity here.
Yes.
It wasn't about putting on makeup or, sending her best selfies. She mentioned that their connection really grew when she started intentionally sending him the worst pictures of herself.
Like being sick in bed.
Sick in bed, awkward photos from weird photo shoots. It's just a perfect example of how true intimacy completely bypasses that curated perfection we all aim for.
That is the pivotal moment. It's a signal, right? It says, I trust you enough to see me when I'm not performing. Most people spend the early stages of dating trying to project this idealized version of themselves.
But by presenting her imperfection, her mess, she gave him access to her true self. And the source is clear. Love thrives in that raw authenticity, not in the polished, filtered version we think people want. That vulnerability is the foundation.
So once you have that authenticity in a relationship, how do you protect it from all the outside noise? That brings us perfectly to Mel Robbins' let them theory, which is all about confronting the massive energy we waste by, obsessively overvaluing what other people think.
It's a literal energy drain. It's a drain on your life force. Mel Robbins points out that if you just look at your phone, you probably have hundreds of draft emails, draft texts, draft posts.
Oh, I definitely do.
She calls that a graveyard of energy. And all that energy is just wasted on something you can never, ever control, worrying about what a colleague or a distant friend might think of you.
And the problem isn't the opinion itself. It's the constant editing, right? We're preemptively censoring ourselves based on some hypothetical negative reaction that might not even happen.
Precisely. That worry comes from living in what the source calls a perception of a perception.
What does that mean?
It means we're caught in this trap of thinking, I am what I think you think I am. So we're editing our lives, our careers, our personalities based on what we assume others are assuming about us. It's just an exhausting, unending loop.
So what's the antidote? What does the let them theory actually say to do?
The solution is simple, but it requires this profound shift in agency.
Okay.
First, let them think negative thoughts. That's the acceptance part. You reclaim your energy by acknowledging you cannot control their thoughts.
You shouldn't try to.
You shouldn't try. So once you accept that reality, let them judge, let them misunderstand, you pivot to the really powerful second step. Let me remind myself I can think what I want and do what I want. And that anchors your self-worth entirely internally. It lets you operate in a way that truly aligns with your values, regardless of external validation.
That transition from external validation to internal worth is just crucial. Once you stop editing yourself for the world, how do you actually start building that internal foundation? That's what Emma Watson was struggling with. She shared this really humbling experience after getting a driving ban.
It's such a moment of clarity, and it's one we can all relate to, I think. She found herself able to do these incredibly complex things on a movie set.
Stunts, choreography.
Intricate choreography, complex emotional scenes, yeah. But she was struggling with basic life admin, forgetting her keys, failing to keep the speed limit. She even joked about feeling the need to tell people, I used to be good at things.
That contrast, mastering the extraordinary but failing at the ordinary, that's where the wisdom is. It shows how external success can just completely mask internal chaos.
It does. And that vulnerability, that honesty, is the necessary starting point for any kind of deep learning. It's what her monk teacher emphasized when he said, if you want to move 3 steps forward, you have to go 3 steps depth first.
I love that.
Because if you skip the deep internal work, the emotional regulation, the self-awareness, every extra step you take forward in your career just becomes heavier, more unstable.
In the process of going deep, it requires immersion, not just checking boxes. Emma found she thrives when she carves out these intense, immersive study blocks, like 3 or 4 hours just on one thing.
Rather than forcing a mechanical 30 minutes every day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just to say she did it. It's about the quality of internalization over just, surface-level repetition.
And that need for an internal anchor, the spiritual root, it's echoed so powerfully by Madonna. She literally attributes her sanity and her longevity in that chaotic industry to her spiritual life. After 29 years studying Kabbalah, she says, flat out, she would not be where she is without it.
And her definition of spiritual life is so critical. She defines it as cultivating an internal life that's so robust that you stop believing the illusions of the physical world.
And she names them.
She names them explicitly.
Yeah.
Approval, money, social media followers. If your life is based on those things, you'll never find peace.
Which brings us to this fascinating concept she mentioned, the third space theory, and why it relates to all this modern anxiety.
Right.
So historically, humans had 3 distinct spaces. You had work, you had home, and you had a third space.
A place of reflection.
A dedicated place of reflection, a temple, a mosque, a church, a community gathering. And the purpose of that third space was psychological. It gave you a vantage point, a place separate from your daily struggle to reflect on your life.
And in modern society, we've basically collapsed that third space. Our work
Right.
is on our phone. Our home is our workspace.
We never get that detachment.
Never. And that's the source of so much stress.
Absolutely. So if that physical third space is lost, we have to create mindful rituals to replace it. She recalls her yoga teacher explaining that the difficult poses weren't really the point.
What was the point?
The breathing, the intentional calming of the nervous system, those rituals are what create an internal third space.
And this internal work, it ultimately leads to this practice of desire and detachment. You want beautiful things, you want success, love.
Of course.
But the moment you become attached to them, you're setting yourself up for suffering when they inevitably change or are lost. So the deeper work lets you appreciate the good things without needing them to define who you are. So if you manage the internal chaos, the next hurdle is external conflict. And that can feel like the heaviest part of the journey. Cardi B was just incredibly candid about hitting a deep depression.
Yeah.
It was career pressure colliding with serious relationship struggles.
And her openness about feeling the love dying in her marriage is a huge lesson in accountability. She described trying to accept her flaws, apologize for her part in it,
But she felt that vulnerability was taken advantage of.
which she said killed everything.
Yeah.
And that led to this profound loneliness and depression.
She tried all the external things, therapy, focusing on her music, but she ultimately concluded that time is the ultimate reset. She realized the commitment to end the struggle couldn't just be an intellectual choice. It couldn't just be her brain or her mouth saying it. Her heart had to be genuinely finished with the cycle of pain.
That heart-level conviction is the difference. It's the difference between a temporary truth and permanent healing. We heard that anecdote about a client going through a breakup.
Right, the one about...
In the first month, they thought about the ex every single day. By month 4, it was maybe once a month. Time provides that necessary emotional distance. It lets the heart finally catch up with the brain's decision.
We also see her struggle with public criticism, which connects right back to that self-worth discussion. She identifies why it hurts her so much. She's a relentless perfectionist.
And everything she does.
Everything, whether it was her previous career or being the best musician, the best marketer, she invests everything she has. So when people critique her work, it's painful because she pours her whole self into it.
And that highlights the tension between how you see yourself and how others see you. She notes that the very thing some people criticize, her unique accent, her directness, is actually her superpower.
It defines her.
It's a crucial lesson. The world's assessment of your flaws is often completely contradicted by your internal reality.
Which brings us so neatly to navigating conflict in relationships, specifically around money. Dr. Orner broke this down brilliantly.
Yeah.
Fights about money are almost never just about the currency.
No, money is just the concrete placeholder. It's the placeholder for the deep underlying issue of mine versus ours. The real argument is about the politics of the relationship.
Like time, attention.
Sharing emotional labor, attention, time, sex, all of which are resources. Money is just the easiest, most tangible way to talk about those power structures.
And Dr. Orner stresses how important it is to acknowledge the underlying ideology that each partner brings to the table. She gave that really pointed example of a friend whose girlfriend.
Despite having a higher salary.
Right, a higher salary, but she still expected him to pay for everything, including buying her a new car, explicitly saying, because he's the man.
And that just shows the clash of belief systems, that particular ideology that men are the providers, no matter the financial reality. That has to be put on the table so you can actually compare how you each define a partnership.
And this is where the definition of a high-value man comes in. The cultural definition today so often defaults to high-income career success.
Right.
But Dr. Orner pushes back. She says high value, in terms of a sustainable partnership, should be about character and ethics.
Honesty, courage, moral standing.
Exactly. And understanding those core, often unspoken beliefs is essential to navigating the politics of a relationship successfully. Okay, let's shift one more time and talk about rewriting perceived limits. Moving from emotional conflict to financial potential, with Cody Sanchez's advice. Most people believe you need this huge pile of personal cash to start a business or buy an asset.
And that is the biggest wealth-limiting myth there is. She just thoroughly debunks this idea that you suffer from a lack of money. You suffer from a lack of knowledge and access to money.
Right.
If you know how to find the capital, the opportunities just open up. She highlights accessible resources like SBA grants, which don't require repayment, and loans that can cover 90% of a business acquisition.
And platforms like Percent.
Exactly. It just comes down to understanding debt differently. The sources stress that the richest people in the world, like Warren Buffett, are highly leveraged. They use debt as a tool.
For acceleration.
That's the core lesson. Strategic leverage versus personal debt. If you take on personal debt for consumption, a vacation, a fancy car that depreciates, that's a liability. It costs you money. But when billionaires use debt, they're using it on income-generating assets like companies or real estate, where the asset pays off the debt and then provides a cash flow. If you can rewire your brain to stop viewing all debt as a moral failure and see strategic debt as a mechanism for wealth, your whole financial roadmap just changes.
This insight leads perfectly into the smart side hustle strategy. Given that 90% of startups fail,
A staggering number.
the advice is crystal clear. Do not quit your job. Don't cut off your security net right away. Use your stable salary to fund the side hustle until the cash flow from that new venture consistently matches your cost of living.
It's the definition of creating from security, not stress. I mean, when you're worried about paying rent next month, the quality of your creativity, your decision-making, it naturally deteriorates.
Of course.
So by using your job as that stable anchor, you give the new business the space and time it needs to actually succeed.
And finally, we can cap this whole roadmap with Novak Djokovic, who talks about achievement and mindset at the absolute peak of human performance.
Yeah.
I mean, despite achieving the ultimate dream-winning Wimbledon and becoming world #1 in the same week, back in 2011, he keeps competing. And the reason he gives is passion and this relentless desire to test my limits mentally and physically.
What's fascinating is his core philosophical belief. The limits are normally constructs in our mind, but he cautions that to sustain that kind of limit-breaking mindset, you need a carefully curated, supportive environment. When you're trying to make tough, often countercultural choices, transforming your diet, your sleep, your habits, especially in a fast-paced city where those counter choices are everywhere, you need people around you who are stimulative, supportive, and actively pushing you.
That's a powerful call to action for you listening. Your environment is either reinforcing your current limits or it's enabling you to break them. So what does this entire deep dive mean for you as you move into your next phase of growth? We've built a roadmap today. Embrace authenticity by letting go of perfection.
Remember that sustainable growth means you go 3 steps deep before moving forward.
Acknowledge that time is the ultimate healer in conflict, demanding heart commitment, not just mental agreement.
And leverage knowledge, not just cash, for financial and physical growth.
And if we tie all of these threads back to resilience, that goal-oriented mindset, the pursuit of excellence that Djokovic embodies, it's crucial for clarity and peace of mind.
But that relentless pursuit has to be balanced by deep internal understanding, or it just becomes destructive.
Which brings us to our final, provocative thought for you to chew on. Djokovic admitted that part of his continuous, almost superhuman drive, even after achieving his wildest dreams, it stemmed from this persistent, deep-seated feeling of not being enough, tracing all the way back to his childhood. We often focus on setting new goals to find purpose. But what happens when you achieve absolutely everything you set out to do?
The ultimate challenge of growth isn't reaching the destination. It's finding that continuous internal purpose, that deep wellspring of motivation, even when you feel like you are perpetually not being enough.
Think back to Emma Watson's mentor suggesting she do 90% of what she wants, but at 50% of the speed. Is your current goal setting truly driven by passion and internal purpose? Or is it secretly fueled by a relentless, external, and ultimately exhausting insecurity? We want you to consider that driving force this week.